Hello, this is Georgina Rose, and welcome to the Dr. Arlene YouTube channel. On this channel, we discuss everything related to magic, mysticism, and everything on the fringes of esoterica. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about one of my most requested subjects ever, and that is how to perform a spell or ritual to get anything you want. And basically what I mean by that is I'm going to be talking about how to formulate a spell or ritual and different formulas that are used when you are creating these workings. So I'd first like to apologize. The person in the house next to me has been mowing their lawn really loudly all morning, and I've been waiting for them to stop, but the video has to get made. So if you hear any weird noise, that's what is going on. So just be aware. Trying my best with the sound thing. I also am hosting a group trip to India via Trova Trip that you can sign up for. It's really, really cool and exciting, and I'll get to see you guys there if you register. But without further ado, let's get into the topic. So the first thing I want to distinguish is the difference between a spell and a ritual, because I think that difference is a lot more nebulous and vague than people often think it is. So basically, a ritual is really anything that uses a process to engage metaphysically. So all spells I would consider rituals. I think ritual is kind of an umbrella term because under ritual there is also mysticism, there's also theurgy, and things that would not be included within the word spell, whereas spell is a working specifically to get an intention in the material world, is how I would define that. And spells are almost exclusively within the category of folk magic, which is like kind of magic that is not as ceremonial in nature, much more quick and dirty, or magia naturalis, which is practices using the natural world in order to create mystic results, specifically in the subcategory of plant magic, which is using herbs and other things from the earth in order to make things happen. So I'm going to use ritual for most of the video, but just know spell is kind of that subcategory within it. But the differences are somewhat nebulous, and not everyone is going to agree with my differentiation. So there's kind of two ways to go about using magic to get what you want, and that would be either through using your own metaphysical energy or using external spirits. And I want to talk about formulations for each of these because there is a big difference between the two. And there are multiple ways to do both of these approaches, but that difference is going to really matter. And you're going to want to consider whether you want to use your energy or external energy to get things done and why you might want to. So using external spirits is really beneficial because external spirits are simply more powerful than us. As humans, we are very limited in what we are. We are not that high up on the divine hierarchy. And so calling in external spirits can really do a lot more than what we could do alone. As well, if you are someone who also does mysticism and is devoted to gods, the gods can help you. Some people really think that they can't or that's bad, but no, we have great historic evidence of that going on. And so it can actually help you get closer to the gods while improving your material circumstance by doing spells or rituals with the gods involved. Yeah. Now, if you want to just use your internal power, a lot of this is people who philosophically do not worship gods, because yeah, you can do magic without worshiping gods. You're no longer like a pagan or a polytheist, I would say. But if you are someone who does solely have a practice that uses your own energy, you don't venerate gods, you don't have that external devotion, obviously you're going to want to use your own energy. Now, other times where if you are not someone with this mentality, you might want to use your own energy if you don't feel like calling up your spirits for this purpose. As obviously when you call up spirits in order to do something magical, they have to kind of approve it. And so if there's something quick and dirty you want done, often you really can use your own energy. And for me, I typically use external spirits for workings that I desire, but there are times when I do use my own energy. So let's start with using your own energy because I think this is where quite a few people start. And it is a little bit simpler than using external spirits, and there's kind of less variance. So when you're using your own energy, a lot of the things are going to come down to sympathetic magic. And sympathetic magic is a premise that hinges on the as above, so below relationship, one of the great cosmic laws of the universe. So what happens in the macrocosm and the microcosm are intimately linked, and they actually affect each other. So I think the best way to look at this is through astrology. So with astrology, we understand that the movements of the planets impact our small lives. And that's not arbitrarily because the planets move. It's because there is a cosmic relationship between what is big and what is small. And so no, it's not that there's like gravity, it's that these planets move and then affect us. So let's think about that relationship. If we believe there's this cosmic linking and interconnecting and like back and forth relationship, then obviously if we can manipulate things in the microcosm, it could then affect the macrocosm. And so In sympathetic magic, you are often using what are called correspondences, or things that represent other things. For instance, St. John's wort is a herb that is yellow, and it corresponds to the sun, and it can eliminate depression, something that if you are deficient in solar energy, you might be dealing with. As well, if you take too much St. John's wort, you can become blind, much like if you stare at the sun for too long. So there's many plants that have metaphysical correspondences. As well, a good example is Datura, one of the most famous witch nightshades. It's this purple and white flower that's called the devil's trumpet, and it is poisonous and it has a deliriant effect to it, and it represents Saturn. And so if you were to represent Saturnine ideas like discipline, time, death, fate, you could use Datura in your ritual to bring in that Saturnine energy in the small space, and then it sort of go out into the universe. An easy way to think about this is a lot of spells and self-energy based magic that you're doing on other people to change other people's minds is going to use what is called a tag lock to them, which is a representation of them. This could be literally their hair, or say a list of their name and their birth date and their birth time. Like if you have someone's astrological data, that's a very common tag lock, and why a lot of occultists never want to post when it's their birthday online. But there's one that I think is probably the easiest way to understand sympathetic magic that also uses the tag lock premise, as this does magic on another human being. And this is called a sweetener jar. So basically, if you are having a relationship with someone and they are being very mean to you, or if you want them to start to like you more, say you're trying to get a better career and your boss doesn't particularly like you and you want your boss to like you a little bit more so you get the promotion and not Jim at the office because you've been working so much harder than Jim and you deserve that promotion, what you could do is you could take a tag lock representation of your boss, whether it's a photo of them that you've printed off their LinkedIn or their birth data, and put it inside a jar. And then in this jar, you're going to put honey, something sweet, right? Because you're trying to sweeten them and sweeten your relationship. Sugars, stevia, all this type of stuff, roses, whatever, all these sweet things, so that then you have that sympathetic representation of that relationship becoming sweeter and you becoming closer, and then you are able to sweeten them and then prefer you more at work. Now, there is a lot of ethical considerations to come into doing magic on other people, because a lot of people find this against their specific laws within their tradition, because whatever tradition you're part of, it's going to have certain virtues and moral laws that you are bound to, either by oaths or by that's what you just think is right and what your specific gods want for you. And so in some traditions, this type of magic is illicit. And even in traditions where it is not, there's a lot of ethical debate on when it becomes not okay, when it becomes an overstepping of someone's will and all of that. But these things exist and they are heavily practiced and have a really ancient historic root to them. So I think it is important to discuss. Now, if you are doing magic using only your own energy and not external spirits, one thing that's very important is to consider energetic balance. So if you are doing a ritual using just yourself, you're going to have to put a lot of your energy into that working. A lot of yourself, a lot of your soul, a lot of your oomph. And so an often common thing that is done in these workings is to do things that raise energy. This could be moving your body, dancing around a fire, doing the circle dance, chanting things repeatedly and starting really, really quiet and getting louder and louder and louder, right? Something like that, that makes the energy level go up. Now, one technique that is sometimes used is seeping energy into yourself from your surroundings. This is sometimes called psychic vampirism. And basically what you could do is you could go into a crowded bar in your neighborhood and sit there and drink a vodka tonic or, water or whatever it is you drink, and sort of see yourself sucking in the energy of the space you are in, right? Because obviously bars are a very high energy environment, but really any high energy environment would work. Crowds are really ideal, and you're kind of leeching off the energy of the crowd around you. You're not targeting a specific person. You're just bringing this collective energy into you, and then you can re-push that energy into your spell. Now, you can also do psychic vampirism on specific individuals, but people largely consider that very unethical. But this technique, is something that you can use. But just be aware, whatever energy you take in might have some gunk from just people being gunky and icky. So all these things can be useful. You don't need to do energy from other people, but for some people that can be really, really helpful. Now, I want to move to the way you would structure one of these things. So before you do magic using just your own energy, I think it's very important to sort of get into the right headspace, because in all rituals, you are a correspondence too, right? what you're wearing, what perfume is on you, what you're feeling, all of that is going to go into the ritual space. And in most cases, the recommendation before doing magic is to sort of clear yourself of all emotion and make yourself as even and steady as possible. In some cases, though, extreme states of emotion can really be added. If you are, say, doing a malefic working or trying to destroy a relationship that is no longer serving you, a bit of anger can be useful. And so you might actually want to work yourself up. But in most cases, you're going to want to calm your mind, calm your surroundings, and clear yourself of all energies around you, and then go into the space in a state of purity. And then you're going to create whatever item you're creating. Often you're like kind of creating things when you're doing this type of working. Or if, say, you're drawing a sigil will be in this category too, right? You'll draw your sigil, and then when you're done, you're going to want to close out and banish yourself from the ritual space, and then ground, which is basically like a closing meditation. I really like this one meditation where you sit on the floor and you visualize roots of a tree growing out of you and energy kind of coming downwards and leveling out, because often rituals, especially if you're just using your own energy, because that's putting all of you into a working, is going to be kind of draining and tiring in some ways. Now, another way, and this is giving you a lot more options if you go with this result, is to do rituals or spells utilizing spirits. So there are many types of spirits in this world. There are gods, there are jinn, there are angels, and there are demons, and all of these spirits kind of do different things. If you are using gods, you're probably going to get a very upright result. I often recommend gods. I think they're probably the default way to go. Now, you can also use angels to do things, but just know angels are they're kind of soldier-like in their mentality. They're very rigid, they're very virtuous, and often if you have a desired magical result that is not in line with virtue and not in line with the law of those angels, they will not do it. Now, demons are quick and dirty creatures. They're very morally gray, but you need to use a lot of precautions if you are using demons in any capacity. Jinn are kind of similar in this regard. And with both of those types of spirits, you're really going to need to use a formulation called evocation. So there's kind of two ways to work with spirits, invocation and evocation. Invocation is calling spirits directly into you, and evocation is calling a spirit into you in order to put that spirit outside of you and bind them so that you can control them and order them to do what you want. But in both of these cases, you need to invoke. So the first step for using spirit-based rituals in order to get a result is going to be purifying yourself, cleansing yourself. This could be as literal as washing your hands of miasma. This could be doing a self-exorcism. I really like the bornless ritual and the headless ritual for this purpose. They are an ancient ritual from the Greek magical papyri that was originally done as an exorcism and later was used as a sort of Swiss army knife of a ritual to get your holy guardian angel and to clear you of miasma and all sorts of things. There's some of the most versatile rituals out there, but that can be really good. Now, after you are purified, however you want to do that, there are also other options like fasting that can be really helpful, but whatever. Purify yourself in some regard. I have a whole YouTube video on purification that you can watch and get many ideas from. And then at this point, you're going to want to banish. And banishing is an invocation. Banishing is not just getting rid of. The most common banishing ritual is the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, which is a hermetic Kabbalistic ritual where you invoke several angels in order to banish other spirits around you. And this seems counterintuitive. Why am I invoking to banish? And the truth is, all banishing rituals work this way. If you were trying to just banish with not invoking anything, you would have to really just do like an energetic method. It'd be a different thing. And so banishing kind of gets a weird rap. And the dual purpose of banishing that is also relevant is that banishing sets you as the center of the microcosm in order to affect the macrocosm. It sets a ritual space. There's also a method called circle casting, which is once again setting you in a protective circle for ritual and centering you in the center of the microcosm. At this point, you're going to invoke. So this would be, if you're doing an evocation, you're going to invoke the highest god you can think of. This could be Yahweh, this could be Zeus, some sort of really high spirit. But if you're not doing an evocation method, you're doing an invocation, you're going to invoke the main god you are using. Now, there are invocations that invoke several deities at once, which rely on a soft polytheist theological worldview, which is that all gods are faces of the same god. So you would list off, like, in the name of Diana, Artemis, Aphrodite, Astarte, and all other divine feminine, right, to invoke the collective divine feminine. But if you are a hard theist, you believe all the deities are separate, you'll often want to do a singular invocation. You also do a singular invocation if you have some really specific goal with your ritual where you only want one energy coming into play. So let's say you're trying to become a better writer. You would invoke Mercury, the god of communication. There would be no need to invoke other spirits at the same time. Now, if you're doing an evocation, at this point you want to do the evoking part, which is summoning that spirit, but not through invocation. So it is formulated quite differently, and you will never have the spirit assume you. So there's an idea called assuming the God form, which is basically when the spirit has entered your body and entered your space, you assume them and you unite with them. And often the invocation switches from I call upon Artemis to I am. You know what I'm saying? It switches from I call upon to I am. And essentially at this point you are, I think possessed is a strong word, but kind of occupied by the spirit. You are coexisting with the spirit. And at this point, you are going to interact with the spirit. If you're doing an invocation, you're going to, what I like to call it, communing, right? You're going to communicate. You're going to let the spirit take you on a vision quest, and you're going to explicitly state your goals. And with your goals in any of these things, you want to be clear but not overly specific. It's a hard balance to strike, but you want to make it clear what you want without going a little too off the rails with specificity. Now, if you are evoking, you are going to want to communicate through scrying. Often a triangle with a black mirror in the center is used to scry and communicate, because you're going to have a different line of communication than if you were normally invoking. It's a completely different beast. And then after you're done with your invocation or evocation, at this point you are going to want to leave an offering, because things are not free in the universe, and these are spirits. You should respect them, you should be grateful for them, and you should leave an offering. Now, this can be as simple as incense, this can be as simple as thanking them, this could be a libation, which is where you give a ritual offering of alcohol, or you could do something more complicated like offering a chicken or offering a whole meal or all sorts of things. You can get really creative with it. It's often good to give offerings that correspond to the spirit that you are invoking. So if you are invoking Saturn, offering a datura flower might be really great. As well, you could commit to a series of devotional acts as your offering. Like instead of giving something right then, you could say, I will fast from sunrise to sunset for 3 days as my offering for this thing. Now, I think there's a trick where people start thinking of this as transaction, and that's the wrong way to go about it too. It is an act of devotion. And if you do not understand gratitude and why we are grateful to these spirits, you're not going to understand how these things work. Now, if you are evoking, you are obviously not going to do devotional acts for the spirit that is bound, but you are going to want to give offerings and devotional acts to the highest God that you have invoked. So keep all of that in mind. Now, after that you've communed and given your offering, you at this point banish the space and, do the thing that you opened with. I think it's a really good format to kind of set up and then undo everything. So, right, you'll begin with clearing your mind and grounding. You'll do a banishing ritual. You'll do an elemental invocation. You'll do your main invocation, you'll commune, you'll give an offering, and then you'll do that elemental invocation again, and then that banishing ritual again. I think it's a very nice open and shut format that really can be applied to everything. It's a really great way to go about it, and it makes sure that you're not missing important components of the ritual. Now, there are outside times where you will not banish. If you are, say, going to go to sleep and have a commune in your dream, if we're talking about Jinn, there are many times when you will create a magic square in your ritual and in order to get a goal, and then you'll interact with the Jinn in your dreams and then banish when you wake up. But in most cases, you will do this all in one go. Now, after this point, you are going to see your results enter the world. And after your spell or ritual is complete, no matter what method you've done it, you need to let it happen and you need to not fight against it. There's a term called lust for results that comes from chaos magic, but I think applies to all magic, which is basically after you have done a working for a specific intention, you need to let it disseminate into the universe. You need to let it happen. You need to not overly fixate, because everything we think is an action, right? If we understand that we can manifest through positive belief about our lives, we can negatively manifest through the inverse. And so if you're having a lot of anxiety about getting your result, often you will add a negative kind of layer of manifestation to what you're doing, and that can undercut your results. Now, at the same time, you don't want to forget about it fully. You want to remember what's going on, so you can watch what are called synchronicities, which are things that are going to happen afterwards that sort of confirm what you're experiencing. This could be seeing angel numbers, seeing if you invoked the Morrigan crow while you're walking around, all of this. So you want to be noting that, but without going into the land of fixation. And striking this balance is something that even advanced practitioners continue to struggle with. Now, you also, I want to add, this is my last thing. Magic opens doors. It does not make you walk through it. If you are given, let's say you did a job spell and you're given a job offer, you still need to say yes. You still need to say you do a job spell and you get an interview. You'll still need to go to the interview and put your 100% into that interview, right? Because magic, it opens doors, but you still have to walk. And once you get a result, and this is a warning, you can mess up that result once you have it. If you do a love spell and then you cheat, you can still get dumped. It's not a get out of jail free card. Now, the very last thing I want to discuss is thinking about what you're doing with your rituals and spells. So you can do anything with magic. There's really not a lot of limitations, but you should be considering how it affects your path. Now, whether or not you believe in karma or whatever, or the rule of three, or any of these ideas about how things come back on you that you put out into the world, what you put out does affect you. Now, you can explain that in 8 million ways and dispute that in other ways, but regardless, we metaphysically are like what we surround ourselves with. We are kind of like sponges. And so you need to consider if what you're doing is in line with your goals and might hurt you metaphysically. If you are, say, cursing people all the time, you're surrounded in so much negative energy that it can really negatively affect your path and fill you with, unfortunately, miasma or spiritual pollution. So you need to consider what you're doing and how it affects you and how it affects your goals and your will and your virtue and all of these things, right? I'm not giving people a free license to do whatever they want. They should consider what that means for their path, for their philosophy, for their beliefs before doing things. It's important to know the why, the how, and what it means for your path. So there are other ways to do rituals. This is such a complicated topic, but with this basic structure that I have given you, you can achieve most goals. Whether that's financial, love related, even spirituality related. There's a lot that you can do with these techniques. Just swap out spirit names, swap out correspondences, and you can be amazed by all that can be done. This has been Georgina Rose. Please like, comment, subscribe, and ring the bell. And if you subscribe for 93 days, you'll meet your holy guardian angel, and you'll never need to learn any of this again. I am also on Instagram, Twitter, Telegram, TikTok. I host the podcast, The Postmodern Iconoclast, on this channel and on most podcasting platforms. And I'm hosting a group trip with Trova Trip that you should join. As well, I am supported by Patreon. On the Patreon, you get an extra video every month. Early access to all of my videos. They're about a week early, approximately, depending on what's going on in my life. And you can, if you're the highest tier, meet with me once a month for spiritual guidance and mentorship. I hope you're all having an amazing day, afternoon, mid-morning, mid-evening, whatever time, wherever it is, wherever you are.